Welcome back, Adrian Hernandez here on the Playmakers. All alone, but not really. At least not for the moment. Lindsay's back home in Minnesota for the week, and I'm holding it down. And officially joining us for the second time, I guess that makes him a friend of the show from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Mick Akers. Mick, how you doing, man?
Hey man, doing great. How about yourself?
Hey, we're doing good. And as always, download your BetQL app today or visit BetQL.com. And as we start this conversation, there's a lot that we need to cover with like every sport imaginable. And I want to ask you, last weekend, it was the first time Chelsea FC came here to America. They played at Allegiant Stadium against Club America from Mexico. We have more soccer coming up this weekend with Real Madrid versus Barcelona. And I was surprised. It was a very raucous crowd. It was damn near sold out. Did FIFA not drop the ball by not having Allegiant Stadium host games for the 2026 World Cup?
Well, actually, that's on the LVCVA. When that bid came up a few years ago, they kind of looked at it, and for whatever reason, they said, "Hey, we're not going to do that." I guess they said it was going to be too expensive, but with some of the some of the soccer they're bringing here, and obviously this weekend, and and the previous ones that have all done well, it just seems like whatever it took to get that here, that it would make a lot of sense, with all the money that's involved. So whatever it was. Whatever price that was, obviously, I think any kind of amount that they're going to make out of it would be far surpass what they would have to pay. So so now FIFA, that's LVCVA who decided not to go and bid on that.
I got to be honest, Mick, that's kind of heartbreaking because I'm looking at San Francisco and I feel like we could have slid them out and put Las Vegas in there alongside LA and Seattle on the West Coast. But from football to America's former pastime in baseball, what's the latest with the Oakland A's? And I know they're trying to build a stadium on their harbor on the West Coast. And have they actually determined a location here in Vegas that they want to move to build the stadium?
They're still mulling over the final two sites. They haven't really said publicly what those are. So they're going through that process while they're going through their process up there in Oakland. They got a couple of key approvals recently up there. One, to allow them to build on the Howard Terminal site if they get this plan going up there. So that's a big one. And then another one was that the city council was looking at possibly putting the stadium on November's ballot to let the voters kind of give their their 2 cents on this. It wouldn't be like an official decision on that. It would have only been an advisory, so it kind of helped guide the city council. They ended up not putting that on the ballot, which was a win in the A's eyes because they didn't want it to go on the ballot because they kind of pushed it into the 2023 and they don't have the time. Then we have yesterday with the MLB commissioner, Rob Manfred, coming out saying what he said in the past. Hey, we got to get this done now. He was just in Oakland recently saying the Coliseum is definitely not a Major League Baseball stadium these days. Obviously, there's a lot of issues up there on that, built in the 60s. So, it's long past its due point here. So, kind of in the same boat we've been in over the last year. It's just still like a 50-50 thing with the term sheet they've been working on for a whole year over there in Oakland with the city council and the A's on the Howard Terminal site. And they still have, what they're doing down here in Vegas. So, it's still a toss-up at this point where they end up.
Ooh, the waiting period. One of the most underrated follows on social media. This gentleman right here joining us, Mick Akers from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Mick Akers. And last night, I was at the Aces game covering it as they took on the Atlanta Dream. Mark Davis was courtside, and sitting right next to him is the new president of the Raiders, Sandra Douglas Morgan, obviously a historic hire, the first black woman in NFL history to become team president. I know we haven't spoken since the hire, and I know you were at the introductory press conference. What are your initial thoughts on the hire?
Looking at it right away, it seems like a slam dunk hire on their end. She has a long history in Vegas. She was born and raised here. She, has a long history, has work here. Obviously, first black chairperson with the Gaming Control Board. She was in there when they had a few issues in there, and she helped clean it up as well. She joined in the Raiders when they're having some front office turmoil. Mark Davis said, "Hey, we kind of looked at it and we, pinpointed a few things we need to clean up." And this woman right here is going to be the perfect person to come in. She said, hey, we're not going to sweep anything under the rug. We're going to get down to this, and get this thing back going and, running smoothly without having these issues come out and these stories come out about what's going on. So, she said, hey, I'm not going to turn a blind eye. I want to get this thing going. And she's just really excited to, take the helm of the business side there at the Raiders.
Yeah, and seeing her last night, that's the key word with everything kicking off with the Raiders in training camp, and seeing her last night is excitement. And yesterday as well, the news came out that the Raiders topped the NFL in ticket revenue with $119 million. So, a two-part question. Number one, from a fan's perspective, what can we take away from this? And then two, I can imagine leading into this season with less restrictions with COVID, that the Raiders are probably more than likely going to make more this upcoming season.
Yeah, so first off, what you can make of it is it's an expensive ticket because although they were number one as far as ticket revenue generated, they're 25th in capacity, so in tickets sold. So obviously you look at that and say, they're one of the lowest in tickets sold, but they're number one at with the revenue generated. So that's obviously the lure of the new stadium. They sat vacant with no fans in 2020 when the Raiders kicked off their Las Vegas tenure. So last year, a lot of people are excited to get in there. Obviously, they had the vaccine mandate, which a lot of people you get both sides in that, and some people are like, I'm not going to go, and some people are like, hey, I'm glad it's there, and it made me feel safe. So you get some of that. Some of those people were selling their tickets on the secondary market, obviously for up to 6 times the amount from when I was looking at some things there last year. And sometimes those sat and weren't sold, and then that's what some seats were there. Some people maybe at the last second said, hey, I'm not going to go. So there was like a 15% discrepancy of tickets sold to actual crowd. But you're right. With nothing in place, there's no vaccine, there's no mask mandate. So some of those people that maybe shied away from it due to that are going to kind of show up now. And yes, I would 100% definitely expect for them to make more money this season, especially with some of those off-season acquisitions, especially with Devontae Adams, number one rated receiver in Madden that came out this week as well. So, a lot of excitement on all fronts on the Raiders in right now.
And some excitement, too, on the basketball side. And I know that you did get to talk to Adam Silver, correct, over Summer League, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so before we get to Adam Silver, I want to back up a second. I'm all over the place. The G League's Ignite is coming to the Dollar Loan Center in Henderson. Do you get the sense that this is kind of going to get viewed in terms of, I guess, the NBA offices in Manhattan as a bit of a test of sustainability and support for this team and kind of as a sign of an NBA team to come here in the future?
I look at it as more as just the next step. Obviously, the Summer League's been here for about 18 years. So Adam Silver told me that they already consider this kind of the unofficial Las Vegas team. It grew from having 6 teams to now they have all 30. So, obviously that grown tremendously and it does great. And he said, hey, this does more of an economic impact than an all-star game. So, I was just looking at the next step. They played a few games here last year at Mandalay Bay. I think that was kind of like a test run to see, how that would do out here. Obviously the Dollar Loan Center is, brand new, less than a year old. They're always looking to add some new tenants there, and it just makes a lot of sense to have that. Basketball always, tends to do pretty well out here, especially going back to the days of the Running Rebels and such. So, I think it's just the next step in the NBA process to eventually landing an NBA team here.
And speaking about your conversation with Adam Silver, first off, well done, sir. Getting that. And then number 2, if you could give us kind of the Cliff Notes version of things that stuck out in that conversation you had with him.
Yeah, so, first, he said this in the past, and he said it again. Hey, we're not doing any kind of imminent talks on their relocation or expansion front right now. They're going to wait till about 2024, 25 when they're going to renew their collective bargaining agreement. So when they're doing that, they're going to do the media rights in there. And he says, hey, it seems like, we're going to go more streaming. A lot of these leagues are doing the streaming thing now. And when you do that, it takes out the typical market. So you look at Las Vegas, and it's looked at as a mid-sized TV market, even though when we have our pro sports teams here, they do well. So, that kind of is still a knock on the Las Vegas Valley, that we're not the largest, one of the larger TV markets. So once you take that out of the equation, that's one less thing that people have to worry about here in Las Vegas is, getting that TV money there, because, that's a lot of money with the media rights there. And so he said, hey, that's a positive thing, but it's going to take a little bit, to get that done. And but hey, we're keeping an eye on Vegas. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on. He pointed to the initial success of the Knights and the Raiders now, and a lot of buzz with. There's a couple arenas projects, on the horizon, but I think one of them that's actually going to get built is the Oakview project, which I asked him about, and he's like, hey, when you have people behind that who have long NBA ties and long facility ties, it's not going to hurt, any kind of. Hey, NBA is going to come to Vegas talk. He said he has had no talks with them at all. That's Tim Lewicki, and he's former president of the Denver Nuggets, and you got Mark Bedane, who's running the Vegas stuff here, who's former president of the Raiders. You have those two guys that I think that's kind of a surefire bet. And I actually I ran into both of them at Summer League 2 days after that, so they're in there taking it in and having some talks with some people in there. So looks like maybe they're trying to get the ball running at that point.
Oh, look at you making sure. Look, you're on top of all of this. And another good sign too is that Adam Silver before the NBA Finals kind of did his State of the Union on the league, and when he was asked about Las Vegas and Seattle, his tone was basically, we don't want to add more teams because we're worried about the talent discrepancy, and we don't want teams out here only winning 10 or 15 games. We can keep that for just the Sacramento Kings. So it's good to see that he's actually switched his tone, and especially with that streaming point about, yes, we may not be the biggest market in the world, but does that really matter when everyone's streaming it and not necessarily watching on local sports affiliates? And before we get you out of here, Mick, and thank you so much for the time. Again, follow him on Twitter at Mick Akers. Is you brought up the arenas and all of them being built in the Oakview group, coming in here and the MGM Sphere and everything. And I know your colleague at the Review Journal, Mark Anderson, kind of posed this question in an article a few weeks ago, and it's something I wonder a lot about, and I'm going to ask you, do you think Las Vegas can handle another major sports arena?
Yeah, I do actually. Obviously, they built T-Mobile with the thought of maybe, having NHL and the NBA. They already have separate NBA lockers in there, ready to go if, a team went in there. But by the time, you look at what Adam Silver's saying, 2025, T-Mobile, it's still going to be not old, but it's not going to be brand new. So obviously, if you have a new state-of-the-art arena ready to go, which, Oakview Group's kind of saying 2026, which falls right in line with that 2025, expansion look, that's kind of a perfect timing. Obviously, I asked Adam Silver about that as well, and he's like, no, I think, Vegas can handle it. It's the non-traditional market. You get this tourism base on top of, the residents, and it's just, it shouldn't be an issue with filling that up. And he also said that about, hey, I think that Vegas can handle NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, WNBA, MLS, obviously looking around here, and that, that's looking like it's, almost a surefire bet, but they still haven't came out with the official announcement, but they've been looking at that as well. So, by all accounts, I ask people this all the time in the industry, and, everyone, I don't think I've gotten a no from a single person that, I value their opinion or trust. And so, I think it's just one more, maybe one more after that, but, maybe at that point there's a cap, but there is definitely space for at least one more in one of these mega arenas here.
I just wonder, if T-Mobile needs to, have work done on it. It's not like they can just, what's going to happen? Where are they going to go while the work's being done on the stadium? But hey, as always, we'll figure that out later, okay? Let's get the team now. But Mick, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, you are officially a friend of the show here on the Playmakers. So thank you so much for the time, Mick.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. Officially add me as a friend.
Hey, Mick, please follow me on Twitter now, okay? Anyway, there he is, Mick Akers, joining us from the Las Vegas Review Journal, one of the best follows when it comes to business, even traffic, everything that has to do with sports here in Las Vegas. Follow him on Twitter at Mick Akers from the Las Vegas Review Journal. And all insider calls are brought to us by BetQL. Bet smarter and beat the books. Download your BetQL app today or go to BetQL.com. And coming up next, it's either going to be sports or it's going to be other things, but I promise you it's going to be good because that's what we do. It's 11:40 The Bet.